Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our Masters of Science in Operations Management information session. And Kara Altman is online with me as well, and she'll be managing the chat that you can see in your menu to the right. She'll have information pop up from time to time, and if you would, please do not use the raise hand option. If you have a question, you can go ahead and type it in the chat box. Just don't send it yet until we're ready for the questions at the end. But everyone will have ample time to ask questions. But again, please do not utilize the raised hand option. We will be answering questions via chat for our participants. So, Carol, thank you again for joining us today. And we also have online Dr. Rich Ham, who will have a short presentation here in a few minutes. And we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Karin Hickenbotham, and I will be the moderator today for the information system. I'm the program manager in the Masters of Science and Operations Management program under the Industrial Engineering Department in the College of Engineering here at U of A. So thank you all for joining. In our department, we have a Master of Science in Operations Management. But we also have an Engineering Management program and an Engineering, a Master's of Science in Engineering. We have graduate certificates, which we'll get to a little later, in Project Management, Lean Six Sigma, and Homeland Security. So we get this question a lot when we were going to recruitment fairs, or our prospective students that email us, what is operations management? Operations management, those professionals, they plan, lead, manage business operations. So operations management uses industrial engineering techniques to enable individuals and organizations to maximize effectiveness and make superior decisions. So that's a very broad statement, and we'll get to what areas they can relate to in different disciplines. But let's get to all about the numbers. We are the largest graduate program on campus. We were established in 1974. We have had over 5,000 students. We've sent them out and been prepared to become leaders and industry professionals, including the military, and also help advance their careers. About 90% of our students completing the degree are full online. Prior to the pandemic, that was a number, but that obviously is probably a little bit higher now during the year of 2020. We have about 70 instructors who have all been evaluated and have real-world experience and practical knowledge in their areas. And we have a total of 35 graduate courses in the MSOM program offered each semester online, and when we are able to have live in classes on campus or at one of our military bases in Memphis, Tennessee, or Hobart Field in Florida. So what can I do with an OM degree? It's a broad range. We have students from almost every professional field, industry, military, nonprofit, banking. So it all depends on where you are and where you want to go. Is this a career advancement for you, or is this a completely different career path that you're going to be taking? And we have advisors that can help work with you and really try to find which path is best for you. So, you know, there's operations managers, there's human resources management, project management, finance, banking, and investments. In the nonprofit sector, of course, in the government and military, we have quite a few military folks in our program, and operations research analysts. So those are just a few of possibilities of in the hundreds or thousands that that pertain to our degree. So the job pay outlook, this is just kind of a snapshot taken from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Can't say that word today. Federal government, like I said, we have a large number of folks that are working in the federal government, professional and technical services, management, and finance and insurance. And so with our degree, an average salary across the nation is going to be starting between $75,000 and $80,000. So why MSOM? You know, I am here to talk about the nuts and bolts of the program, and we can answer any questions that you have. But if you really want to know why MSOM, I want you to hear it from our students. This year, we started a student testimonial on our Facebook page and LinkedIn. And what this does is it highlights our students, why they started the program, where they were, where they want to go. And they talk about the specifics of what made them join the MSOM program and or pursue a certificate. They talk about the possible promotions they're going to get and what their favorite classes were and why. And the biggest thing that you're going to read when you read all these testimonials is that every single person will say, what I learned yesterday, I took to work the next day and used it. And so that's kind of our motto. And we've stuck with that because that's what is a consistent message from our students. So check out our Facebook page. I'm going to provide some links after the session that you can go on and read these testimonials. But we have such a diverse student population, and it's amazing to see where they were when they started and then where they were going to be when they finished. Again, you can also check that on our LinkedIn page, but really good stories from some really great students and people. So again, our motto, learn it today and use it tomorrow. Operations management is a high wage, high demand field spanning numerous industries. Okay, we are 100% online. We also do video synchronous and or evening on-campus classes. Video synchronous is when you actually attend the class online, but at a specific time, depending on where that class is held. We do hold classes on 2 of our military bases, along with here at U of A in Fayetteville, Arkansas. So there's no out-of-state tuition for U.S. residents. We have a flat tuition rate and flat online fee. To complete the degree is less than $15,000. The amounts are going to vary depending on which prerequisites you'll be required to take. You can learn from professors with current and relevant business experience. These are STEM-oriented courses, so designed to meet tomorrow's needs. And Dr. Ham is going to get to that later on, that we just got briefed on Friday from a faculty meeting about how a lot of the curriculum has been updated, especially to relate to the times that we're living in. So if you have any questions about that, Dr. Ham will certainly be able to answer those as well. Only 10 graduate courses are required, so 4 are required. They're core classes, and then you have 6 electives that you're going to tailor to your needs. You will have to finish with a 3.0 GPA, and the flexible degree plan, again, lets you choose, what classes are going to benefit you for your goals. You can also earn a graduate certificate concurrently without taking any extra classes, and I'll get to that here in a second. So there is no GRE or GMAT required if your undergraduate GPA is a 3.0 or higher. You can enter from any undergraduate degree. We've had students with history degrees. We have a large number of students with business or engineering degrees, chemical engineering, biology. I've had journalism, sociology, psychology, so very, very diverse. We have 5 8-week sessions a year, and they're going to be in August, October, January, March, or May. And again, if you could not utilize the hand raising option, we'll get to questions at the end of the session. So complete this as fast as a year or up to 6 years to finish. Students always ask me, well, how fast do I have? And I said, well, you have up to 6 years to finish. And if you want to finish in a year, this is how your classes are going to lay it out. If you want to finish in 18 months, or if you want to finish in 2 years. And so you'll work with your individual advisor as far as what plan best suits you. A big draw to this is there is no thesis. There is a very simple, very positive experience in a comprehensive exam at the end of your program, which basically allows you to put together a presentation for our committee, and they let them know what you've learned and how you've applied it. And this is a great time for you to give your suggestions, to have a one-on-one with the committee, and they can have follow-up questions with you, and it helps us improve. To hear from you. And again, that's why we do those student testimonials, because the best way to learn is from our students and what they're needing and what they're wanting. We also have an MSOM Alumni Society and a MSOM scholarship each semester that you can apply to. So there is a COVID-19 special announcement. Effective fall 2020, at this time, we are waiving the GRE for applicants with a 2.5 to 2.99 undergraduate GPA. So you will be admitted with exceptions, but you will be admitted without having the GRE. Applicants with above a 3 is automatically waived for any term without admission exceptions. Once the GRE testing centers resume operations, the standard admissions requirements will go back into full effect. So the admission process, our application is free. You can apply there at the link, or I will provide that for you in the follow-up email after the session. If you are a U of A graduate, your transcripts are already on file. There's no added step for you for there. Others, you will just simply request an official transcript from your schools to be sent. There is no resume, letters of recommendation, or personal statements required, a very simple process. And for the prerequisites, you don't need to have those completed for the admission, but we will admit you and allow you to take those prerequisites along with your graduate courses depending on what is needed, and again, work with your advisor on that. But the 4 are going to be law and ethics, so basic law class. We have the industrial cost analysis. It's a basic It's a basic accounting class. I'm sorry, I might have lost reception there for a minute. I apologize. So the accounting class can either be financial or managerial accounting, depending on your previous coursework. We'll look at that and evaluate that. Applied statistics. Now, this is a stat course from any discipline. It can be from business stat to behavioral science statistics, statistics for engineers. So it can be from any discipline. And then the final one is an intro to decision support tools. We basically call this an advanced Excel class. So everyone's coming from a different level of experience with Excel, and a basic account or a basic computer course during your undergrad is not quite going to cover everything that you're going to need to have to be successful in our classes. So there's one of 2 options. We have the actual class that you can take, which most students do that option just because they do want that refresher and they want to be solid in those skills. But we also have a free proficiency exam available designed by our department that if you are in advanced Excel already in your job and you've been using it for 20 years, there is a way to go ahead and take that exam. And if you do pass with a 70% or better, then we will waive that prerequisite for you. And again, the transcripts will be reviewed for undergraduate equivalency, so those are evaluated during the admission process. So the graduate certificates, we have 3 in our department. The oldest and the most popular currently is the project management. We also have Lean Six Sigma, and our newest edition, which is gaining popularity, which Dr. Hamm is here to talk about today, is Homeland Security. So with the certificates, there's only 4 classes. You only have to have a 2.5 undergraduate GPA, and the certificates do not require the GRE at all. As long as that 2.5 is there, you are admissible to the program. These do stand alone, or you can have this concurrent with your Master's of Science in Operations Management or Engineering Management. The project management certificate is designed to provide skills to become better project managers and prepare for the PMP certification. We are working on some things, and we just found out yesterday that there are PMI societies, professional network organizations that you can join. So if you have questions about that, jot that down, and maybe we can answer some specific questions later. The Lean Six Sigma, this is how to learn how to eliminate problems, remove waste, and reduce variation to improve operations. This also prepares you for the certification exam, depending on what level you want to pursue. And then finally, our Homeland Security Certificate. This is designed for industry and safety professionals to learn how to mitigate risk. So for the Homeland Security Certificate today, we've got Speaker Rich Hamm. Dr. Hamm is the Associate Director of the Masters of Science in Operations Management and the Engineering Management at the University of Arkansas. Dr. Hamm retired from the United States Air Force and the Department of Homeland Security, where he held various regional and national leadership roles. He is a recognized subject matter expert in Homeland Security issues, consulting domestically and internationally to the United States government. Dr. Hamm teaches courses in leadership, global competition, homeland security, and unmanned aircraft systems, also known as drones, and is involved in the UAS research at the university. So, Dr. Hamm, thank you much for joining us today, and I'm going to hand it over to you.
Well, thanks, Karin. So I always am excited to, and probably my biggest challenge today will be to keep this short, but we certainly would have time for questions afterwards to talk to you some about what the Homeland Security Certificate in our program is about. First off, a couple of things to just talk about when people ask. Often we're asked, why does an operations manager need to have these skills? And really it's grown. It was growing before September 11th, but it has become one of the skills that nearly every operations manager has to know, and many will be surprised to know. And one of the trends in industry that would, I think, interesting to note is 20 years ago, up to the mid 90s, typically the chief security officer, that individual would be at what we would probably talk about a senior director level, down several levels. In virtually every Fortune 100 company now, those are vice president and executive vice president levels. They're C-suite individuals. And they have more and more had to have skills to where they understand how to put together security requirements to make decisions and recommend decisions within the C-suite and to the board, but also so that they had learned how to be operations managers. Many of these individuals originally came up as law enforcement individuals, typically out of the federal government. And now some of them had to come back and retool to learn the very things that we teach in our program, how to do net present value, to make decisions on investment, how to make recommendations based on ROI. And I always leave this with a quote of one of my good friends that's typically a guest speaker. And when we asked him, what was the number one challenge that you had to adjust coming out he came out of law enforcement, and he said, well, the number one thing I had to learn was that my company was not in the security business. My company was in the profit business. And so I had to do things as an operations manager to show profitability. So here's the kind of skills that you do learn in our certificate. You develop those competencies that you can follow both industry and government. We have many government officials and officers in the military or military members generally, and others that come because they want to add to their skill set on how to make better decision making, how to manage people, and understand what the compliance standards were. You can apply those skills to interdisciplinary problems, very wide problems, everything from making a decision of whether or not it makes sense to make a cybersecurity decision, because you often, even if you're not a cybersecurity expert, you are required to manage the cybersecurity operation and physical security operation for your plant or for a government facility, and manage those skills. In some cases, you could manage thousands of people that are dispersed across the world, which many companies and also government officials in Homeland Security do. You apply the critical thinking and those problem-solving skills to basically look at problems that have never existed before. And so every day I have colleagues telling me about, hey, look at, what do you think about this? And how would you approach it? We've never seen it before. It's a brand new problem. And we have to meet both the mission and vision of our company or our organization at the same time, meet these compliance issues, which sometimes conflict. So it requires a lot of critical thinking and long-term holistic views of how businesses and institutions operate. And then we go through case studies in several of these, and we basically teach real-world skills. Let me show a couple of things that I think are kind of important to understand. And I'm not going to go through a definition page of all the acronyms, because of all of the, I've been involved in many lines of business in aviation and the military, and everyone has their own set of acronyms. But I will just point to specifically for supply chain. CTPAT is very specific, and the things that an organization is required to do, it literally will bring their supply chain to a halt if they don't know how to do that. Export control requirements, what you can send and what you can't, and what those requirements are. We teach those requirements in some courses where you have to understand, when I send this out, am I violating any laws? Because there's certain countries that I can't send it to for certain technology. Hazmat controls, both in shipping and also in control and reporting. That has become a major factor, this kind of things that you have to do. If you're in a chemical facility, the CFATs, which is basically an infrastructure protection program in DHS, you are inspected to make sure you're meeting those regulatory requirements. And so you, as an operations manager, you may not do that personally, but you certainly need to understand your people that are doing that, and then what makes sense. You know, the HR side of this is, what things do you need to understand if you are actually sponsoring people to come in on a visa? If you're traveling, what you need to know, what's the reporting requirements? Karin mentioned earlier, people we often have people come out of the banking industry. I have 3 recently that have taken the Homeland course. Those individuals there's very specific reporting that has to happen within a bank about the amount of money that's transferred, where it's transferred to, if you hit certain thresholds. Those all came out of one of the various acts since some predated 9/11, but some since then. So we start, and there's some things that people right off the bat, the Aviation Transportation Security Act, that was the first act after September 11th, but then the Homeland Security Act, which stood up the Department of Homeland shortly afterwards. FEMA is a Homeland, actually part of Homeland Security, and we teach those National Incident Management System concepts throughout the Homeland course, and a new course in Crisis Management, where you learn how do you set up systems and make plans to respond. And you can imagine there's a lot of interest recently because of the COVID response. There's some people wondering, did we really think this through? Because some of our responses, we wish we would have spent a little bit more time doing that, exercising it, and making sure it was right. And then operations managers making decisions to mitigate those. And then the Patriot Act, which is probably the most controversial of those, but there's still remnants that exist. And you have to know how to comply with that. If you are to receive certain types of subpoenas, how would that work? And while you've got an attorney, hopefully in large organization, you also need to understand even at what point you need to ask the questions and whether there's a compliance requirement. This is not all-inclusive, but it is at least a start in the kind of compliance requirement that industry, and in some case the government, has in order to meet the mandates after September 11th. In some cases, they were continuation of those exact kind of a copy and then kind of put on steroids after September 11th. But the point is, it is a pretty daunting task, and trying to figure out and self-study on your own with some kind of guidance, it's pretty tough to do. So we've done the courses specifically to give the skill sets. You know how to manage a workforce in these situations. You know how to comply. You would understand, what are the things that I need to track? Are there things I should be paying attention to? How does my physical security of my building match with industry standards? And how does that and my cybersecurity match? And even some discussions, if you choose to take the UAS course, some discussions about counter-drone and how do you prevent espionage and that sort of information loss in that case. So here are the courses and currently, and what we'll say the top 3 courses are currently the required courses, but we have submitted a change and anticipate it going through this year, and you could apply to only take 5003 and 5993 and then choose 2 electives. And the reason for that is we're always making adjustments, both the certificates and the course, based on what changes there are. So one of the body of knowledge in the American Society for Industrial Security had sort of de-emphasized the amount of supply chain. We know that several of our folks are in supply chain, and they will take that so they understand the foundations of supply chain so that they can apply the Homeland Security skill sets to those and look at optimizing how their current operation works while they're trying to comply with Homeland Security laws and regulations. But we also know that there's some movement there of others that are going to be looking at things like human factors, a new course that we have that's in the final approval process. This fall, 8-week 2, which talks about how do you investigate when something's occurring, how do you see what the human impact on, whether they made mistakes or it's a technology issue, or the interface between humans and technology. And then the new course that we have, a 577V, that is in the approval process. It'll be offered 8-week 2 in crisis management and resilient design. And in that specific case, it's going to talk about, it talks about not just the government, but also industry best practices, the kind of things that you would be expected to do as an operations manager to ensure that you could react, like the COVID crisis would be one. Others would be if you had a terrorist attack or an active shooter, or just things about if you had a crisis that occurred because you've got a problem that's going on with the reporting, or because somebody was suspicious, or because you felt like that some of the individuals that you, maybe if you sponsored somebody and you're wondering what you're required to do, what's the plan, how do you write a plan, what are the requirements for a plan, and then how do you exercise those and make sure that you're doing them effectively. So those that are interested, the advisor can help walk you through these kind of issues, but we have, I would say, a mixture of individuals that will would choose to want to emphasize more of what, for instance, the cybersecurity course. That course talks about, it's not that you're a cybersecurity coding hacker expert, but that you manage that using the FAIR technique or following the NIST standards, which is the National Institute for Standards. That is how we would look at making sure that you're meeting those requirements and managing the risk. Can't eliminate it, but then learn methods to manage that risk to make decisions.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Ham. And again, just for closing remarks here, we're going to have a Q&A session here. So start thinking of your questions and typing them in the chat box at the bottom right of your screen. The fall admission application is open to start in 8-week 1. The deadline is going to be Monday, August 10th. So that's coming up pretty quickly, just this Monday. If you do want to start, if you are not a current student, so if you are not part of the program, fall admission application is going to be for 8-week 1, the deadline August 10th. And then I believe September 29th is going to be the deadline for any non-current student to apply to start in 8-week 2. I mentioned earlier that we have those 8-week sessions. And so that's the another added benefit of our program is that during the 2 main fall and spring semesters, if you miss the first cutoff deadline, then we can always get you started in the middle of the semester on our second terms or our second session, 5-week session. So there's going to be some links that I'm going to send out to you folks and everybody who did register but maybe wasn't able to attend. It's going to include a YouTube channel that we've got going on various topics. There are previous sessions that were recorded, similar sessions like this. We did feature the project management back in June. We featured the Lean Six Sigma certificate in July. And so those are on our YouTube channel for you to view. This one will also be uploaded today once it's finalized. Again, there's going to be also a MSOM webinar series. So we've got that. We had a few back in the spring starting in April, if you want to check those out. And then also previous webinars, which are basically kind of a taste of what you would get in one of our courses. There are various topics, project management, Lean Six Sigma, again, just tons of topics on there that you can browse through. And, you know, at your leisure, you can watch those and then get a good idea of what our program's all about. Again, the links will be provided by myself. You have my email. And I know Carol always types hers in the chat for everyone to have for her. She's the assistant director in the MSOM program, and she and I work together on the admissions part of the program. So if you have any questions for her as well, whether it be previous coursework, transcripts, processes, whatever that may be, you can reach out to either one of us. Our generic or our general email is going to be msom@uark.edu, which Carol also monitors. So do we have any questions out there? That's all we have for you. We try to keep this short because we want to give you time to ask questions. And so with Dr. Ham on here and Carol and myself, does anybody have anything they would like to throw out there. I see that John raised his hand, John Austin. If you would type your question in the chat box at the bottom. And again, while we're waiting for questions, if anyone has anything, and this is questions about, previous coursework or what Dr. Ham talked about with the Homeland Security classes. If you have any questions about what's changing in the fall, we've updated some coursework. And I do know, I think I see about 4 or 5 of our current students who jumped on here probably to learn more about the certificate. So thank you guys for joining. Appreciate you being here. Adrian's got a question that if you are interested in the MSOM program, do you have to declare if you're going for a certificate, or would you just take the classes? So you do, good question. You do have to declare the certificate, so that is a separate admissions process. You will go through the same process. You do have to, the biggest, I guess not mistake, but the biggest confusion among students is whether or not they're still degree seeking or non-degree seeking if you're adding a certificate. You are a degree seeking student, so when you do the admissions application, you will choose degree seeking. That allows you to choose the program that you want, whether it be project management, Lean Six, or the Homeland Security. So reach out to me if you have any questions, or your advisor, of course, about that process, because it can be a little confusing with our new admission system. I hope that answered your question, Adrian. Let me know. Stephen, hey, good to have you on here, bud. No questions, just praise. Thank you. Stephen, you're always a big supporter of us, and I always appreciate you coming on to the sessions. Hi, Craig. Will you have additional aviation courses since I'm in the Air National Guard and in the aviation industry? Rich, what do you think about Craig's question there about having additional aviation courses for our military?
So, Craig, there's now, of course, we're not an aviation program, but the UAS courses in particular drive us to a few things. There are, and will likely be, as part of a interdisciplinary program over the course of the next year or so, an advanced course, and that is going to be specifically for people that are trying to do something more than just get a basic remote pilot certificate, but they actually want to learn how to apply for the waiver process beyond line of sight. Everything, if the UAS course is an example, it's about 40%, a little bit more than 40% of the information that's required in a private pilot certificate, but also there's a lot of data that goes about the types of platforms and how you would do more in-depth specific use of thermal or multispectral, or do different types of modeling with those. We do have an introduction to how you do that modeling, and we do have introductions on different types of remote certificates. There's another department that has, after the foundations course we have, that course actually has a pretty large group in GIS that does some more advanced modeling and doing more than just the basics. So we teach you how to do the software, but actually do some things that would be a much higher graduate level. If you're interested on more of that, I'd be glad to talk to you anytime, but there are some things that are developing that the UAS course would have that would have more information, more advanced information.
Thank you, Dr. Ham. Stephen, thanks for joining us. Can you obtain or pursue dual multiple degrees such as MSOM and MSEM, or MSOM and a new MSOA? If so, how would that be structured? I think, Dr. Ham, you're best to answer this one.
Well, so there are ways that you could apply and individually and meet each of those requirements, but there are actually some limitations on the number of hours you could dual count and how that would work. So the best thing to do, if you have a specific one you're interested, I would say, is send that interest to the advisor. We would coordinate that, and then Carol would assign who's the right person to do it, but it's going to have to be looked at individually. Some of those things have crossover to where you could do some, but like I said, there are some limitations about dual counting. So you could ask us if you give us a specific. If you're looking at MSOM and EM, that would be all us. If you said, hey, I want to look at MSOM and at the same time look at the new OA program, then we would need to coordinate within the department and ask some questions and see how that degree plan would look for you. But certainly glad to do it if you would like us to take a look at the specifics based on what your specific requirements are.
Good, thank you for that. Are there any other questions out there? We have a little bit of time. Carol is putting in the chat section here the information or our contact information for for Rich, Dr. Ham, and for herself. This will also be included in the email. You should have my contact information from the registration for this info session. So we'll give everyone a few minutes to wrap up, and you can also, stay on. If you have a more personal question, maybe with specific coursework and things like that, we'd be happy to help you on an individual basis if you don't want to do it in a group setting. But again, I want to remind everyone, our program, there's no application fee, there's no thesis, and so we really make it a positive experience for our students. And the best way to learn that is to go in and read those testimonials that we've got on Facebook and LinkedIn, and just take your time when you have a minute to go through, because they are really great stories. And we love learning from our students, and we love sharing their message, and who best to illustrate that for those thinking about coming onto the program. So if there are no other questions, again, this session is going to be recorded, and it will be on our YouTube channel sometime later today. Once that is finalized and posted, I will send out the follow-up email with all the links with some great information. So Carol says, Stephen, if you're still on, if you are dual enrolled in 2 master's programs, you can only use 6 credit hours that will count for both degrees. So if you have any additional questions about that, reach out to your advisor and try to get that, what that would look like. So, okay, well, I want to personally thank Dr. Ham for taking his time and helping out with the presentation and giving us all very good information on the Homeland Security Certificate and other things. I want to thank Carol Altman, as always, for being my sidekick on the moderator. And I want to thank our advisors who joined us today and other staff members, Mindy, Lisa, Marge, thanks for joining. We always like your support in these, and it's always good information for us, right? We always need a refresher. So again, thank you, Carol, thank you, Rich, and thank you those who attended. And we'll have a follow-up email later on. Thanks, everyone.